Welcome back to the Global Business Report here on Arise News. What do you think about paywalls? When you click on a website and try to read a news piece, you're asked to either subscribe or sign up. Well, paywalls have been important for a number of publications with respect to being able to generate revenue because of what the internet has done to online publications. But, there it is. We subscribe right now for 99 cents for 4 weeks. That's for the New York Times, for example. Now, the business structure, or rather the business sense behind paywalls, has been questioned by our next guest, Brian Morrissey. He is the writer of the Rebooting newsletter. I think he joins us from Florida. Brian, good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. For those that don't know what they are, can you define, I mean, it sounds obvious, but can you define paywalls for us, please?
First of all, thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about this. So paywalls, basically, when you in journalism or news content, basically, there's two ways, basically, for publishers to pay for creating the content, right? Their businesses are either advertising, which is people will access the content freely on websites or on television and radio, and then there'll be advertising. So there's a trade-off basically of we're gonna give you free content, but you're gonna give us your attention, and we're going to put advertising in front of you for different goods and services. The alternative to that, and it's not like either or, is, hey, we're going to create this content and you're going to have to pay us in order to access the content. That's Netflix, and that's like you just showed, the New York Times. And increasingly, because of the advertising market and it being dominated by big technology companies like Facebook and Google and even Amazon now and Apple soon, is that a lot of publishers cannot make enough money with advertising, no matter how big their audiences are. The New York Times has one of the largest audiences for a news publication in the United States, really the largest. Yet they need to do subscriptions because you can get direct payments from your readers in order to support the business.
Now, what's the? We got your. We have your article up there just now, rethinking paywall. So, what's the solution? What can you explain? I guess what was in your newsletter with respect to how this can be rethought. How we can rethink this.
Yeah, I've been a journalist sort of all my career basically, and so I've been both covering the media industry. So I'm sort of been living it and I've also been covering it. So it gives me an interesting perspective, I hope. And it was very clear, it was the early internet, all the bets were on advertising. And the idea was, unlike, a newspaper or a magazine, you would be able to have far larger audiences. And therefore, advertising was a better business model because you don't want to put, what they call friction in front of people. You want to have the biggest audience possible. And that's because the idea was that all the money that was going into newspapers and magazines was going to move to websites, right? And so they would always show this chart that said people were spending 50% of their time with the internet, yet of their media time, but only 12% of spending went to the internet. And the idea was that was going to change, right? And it did change. It did, those numbers did end up matching, but the money, typically almost all the money went to Google and Facebook and these technology companies because they didn't have to hire journalists and other people to make the content. We made it for them, basically. And so, the challenge there becomes, when you move to paywalls, and what my argument has been is that it's not a one size fits all thing because, a lot of publishers want to have recurring revenue, which means that you start the year, you're going to make money through subscriptions. But the problem is a lot of people can't afford subscriptions. I'm in the United States right now, and we have a very large and deep market. It's a rich country, and even with all the inequality, there's a lot of people who pay for news. About 20% of people pay for news, right? And that's one of the highest percentages in the world. But you've got 80% who do not pay for news, right? And so if all the quality news is only for those 20%, well, then you're going to have massive problems of media literacy and misinformation. because if quality information and quality news content in particular is a luxury good, your societies are going to suffer as a result. And so I don't think that it can all be subscriptions. I think subscriptions can be an interesting model, but I hope that we think about how we can have broadly available quality information for everyone.
All right. Okay, I get the argument. So is it then more ads? I mean, is ads going to be, because these sites, they have to make money, right? One way or the other. So if you're saying you have, I guess, maybe less paywalls, then what's the alternative? How do you make up for that lost revenue?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be different for all, different publishers, I think. I think the best model is, and again, like there's not one model, right, is more what they call freemium, right? And so you have to, so you're basically serving different parts of your audience. There are people, and you see this, let's say with Netflix, right? Netflix is a massive success in getting people to pay for content. It's not news content, but a lot of people, hundreds of millions of people pay Netflix, and Netflix said, we're not going to show ads. Well, now Netflix needs to, is adopting ads. And the reason they're doing that is because there's a large group of people who will not pay. I don't care if they have Stranger Things 18, like they're just not going to pay, okay? And they might at some point have Stranger Things 18. But you have to be able to serve both audiences and give people choice, right? And like we all know, there's a trade-off, right? If you go to a paywalled website, typically the experience is much better, as far as the ad load and like the number of ads and the pop-ups and the video and stuff like this, than a free site. The free site is going to have a lot more ads on it. But I think giving people options is the sort of basic, path that many publishers will need to take. I mean, otherwise we're just going to have less educated people. I get
your argument now. You can't treat news as a service that should be fully paid for by everyone, because not everyone can pay for it. And it's the news, because people have to be informed, people have to be educated. Fake news can be destructive. So if I get you, that's the crux of the argument.
But the thing I would add for that, because it changes the news content, right? So like if you're only aiming for the top strata of society, well, guess what your content is going to be geared towards? It's going to be geared to the richest people, the most powerful people, because they're your customers, right? And that's who you're going to be. Who you're going to be catering to. And I think that's a pretty dangerous situation. I mean, I think most of us live in societies that are incredibly unequal, right? And it's a major issue worldwide, really. And maybe some parts of Europe it's not, but it is, particularly in the United States, I can just speak to. And, I think it's pretty dangerous if you're going to have, news outlets that just because of their business models are going to be more geared to catering to the elites of a society, because that's just going to widen the divide and it's going to widen resentments.
Excellent stuff. Couple minutes to go, Brian. What's the trend? How do you see? I mean, we know that in Australia, Facebooks and the Googles and these content platforms have to now pay publishers for their content. If you can quickly tell us how you see things playing out going forward? Which way is it going to go?
Yeah, I'm against the sort of shaking down, Facebook and Google for money to then distribute to publishers, only because I know how it goes. Like, it's going to go to the most powerful publishers, right? Like Rupert Murdoch's going to be like at the front of the queue to get his handout from Google and Facebook. So I don't know if that's the answer, right? I think the answer and I see this within the publishing industry, is to get back to basics and to build sustainable publishing businesses, right? And that's like, it's hard, right? But it's a worthy goal. And there's not like one silver bullet to be able to do it, right? And for some publishers, depending on their mission, like advertising is absolutely the right model. For other publishers, it can be subscriptions and ads. And maybe now we're increasingly seeing publishers sell products basically themselves, right? Because you think about it like a book review, right? Like a lot of people decide on what books to buy or what movies to see based on the recommendations of like news publishers. Now, news publishers have always subsidized their main mission of uncovering, government misdeeds, or like I just saw like crypto scams and stuff like this. We need that, right? But they've always subsidized that with, auto coverage and lifestyle and food and stuff like this. So that's a normal model. And I think publishers just need to come up with many ways to make money in order to just look for a handout from a government or just bet on like one model.
Excellent stuff. Brian Morrissey, a very, very great article that you have in your newsletter, the Rebooting newsletter. Really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us on the Global Business Report. Thank you so much.